Hello, viewers. My name is Adam.
I'm Aaron.
This is Seeking Me Productions. Bring you a movie review.
So we saw it. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Part 1. A resurgence for Part 1s and Parts 2.
Ain't that the truth? I mean, at this day, like I said, these movies are getting too long, getting way too stretched out. I need them to bring back intermissions. I'm sorry, it's getting to that point.
Especially if the Part 1 ends on a point where people can probably keep on going. They just need a break in between.
Exactly.
Though how this movie ends is a decent breather.
Yeah.
Like unlike some of the cliffhanger endings that some other Part 1s will do.
That's very frustrating.
But yeah, in general, we need to bring back the intermissions. That being said, let's talk about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Now, it's no stranger that, or at least no, issue out there or situation that people just haven't really gotten a chance to actually think about when it comes to the making of this film, and a lot of films that had to been pushed back and or moved around because of the pandemic
and because of the COVID situation, it ballooned a bunch of budgets.
Exactly.
So rather or not this movie succeeds on the financial front, is still what to be said.
Mm-hmm.
But from a creative standpoint, we can say that based on our concern, the Mission Impossible franchise has been a series of between goods and okays.
Especially when I look at it from my point of view, I'm not like the biggest Mission Impossible fan out there. I like the movies; they're okay.
Well, definitely watch these much more faster than a Fast and Furious movie.
That's so true. That being said, I will say that the current movies that are on this franchise are some of the better ones out of the franchise, and I would definitely say after coming out of this movie, I can see where the some more improvements.
Structurally, we'll say Dead Reckoning Part 1, as of right now, is the best one yet.
Mm-hmm. But
structurally,
there are issues.
A lot of it, some of it's personal, some of it's objective.
Mm-hmm.
So let's discuss. The story revolves around an unknown threat that we're not going to disclose here because the marketing didn't highlight it. So
they didn't talk about it, so we're not going to talk. You want to know about it? Watch the film.
It's just that there's an unknown threat going around that's kind of raised the stakes a lot more than previous entries.
Yeah, it definitely did. Especially, I would say this is the one time where in the franchise I was really like, okay, this is piquing my interest as far as what I'm looking for in a espionage kind of situation.
Yes, and make to avoid as much spoilers as possible about what is the main objective here. It is a MacGuffin-like story in which our characters of Ethan Hunt and his team has to go about and find this device that could spell doom whoever take control of it. But for most part, how the script was handled. The first half of this movie, it has a masterclass in suspense.
That's true.
It actually takes a while for the first time. It takes a while for even the title card to come in.
Speaking on that, on just the title sequences alone, and it is going into the specifics on how it brings you into the story. I felt that was probably some of the best work that was done as far as trying to engage the audience into a story.
Because they really did lay out how effective this new threat can be.
And then there's also sequences that are throughout the rest of this film where I felt was well used and well directed.
If there's you can clearly see how this can be highly influenced later down the line for other people. So for Christopher McQuarrie, his direction and his tight scripting on that front is some of the solid work the franchise have seen.
Yeah.
Now going into characters, there's if you're not a stranger to Mission Impossible, this is usually a Tom Cruise vehicle.
Yeah.
He's the main producer on these movies, and he's
it's
the
his
lead star.
Direction, his game. This is his rodeo.
And he's a talented entertainer, not necessarily actor. The entertainer
I will say, as far as I'm concerned, for the character that he plays, which is Ethan Hunt, in this series, I will say this is probably one of the rare times where I actually felt, because of the way that the stakes are in this story, I felt as though I could actually see him doing these, or at least being what he's supposed to be, i.e. a spy, i.e. a agent for undercover and doing these particular types of things. I actually kind of felt more like he was actually doing the job that it was what he's supposed to be doing in the first thing place.
Especially how they bring it to spotlight the reasons why the group of IMF actually comes together in the first place.
Exactly.
So that's something that's very interesting. Not like a lot of these characters, we don't necessarily dive that much to their origins, but this is a movie that did highlight some of that front, which is helpful. That being said, going back to Tom Cruise, for as many strengths that he does bring a lot of weaknesses, to which that affects not only us personally, but also objectively how we view the film.
Yeah.
And let's discuss on what we're really talking about here, on what really brings us down on a creative front, and that's the franchise's unnecessarily a pattern of replacing the female leads.
This is a trope that unfortunately continues on in this film. We thought that they had left this behind, considering they had brought in one of the franchise's best female leads.
This basically one of the best characters this franchise has seen, and that was Rebecca Ferguson's Elsa. The way they handled her is so blatantly forced on a writing front.
And rude. It's just rude.
It's just, we can't help but say, why did you decide to go this route and be so obvious with it?
It's obvious why, unfortunately. And now, whether or not they wanted to convey this in the way they were directed, or let's just say his direction of it, in general, when it comes across as though the character of Elsa was becoming a little bit way too more of the focus other than the other guy, or at least was pulling away a little bit more of the focus than the main main story was supposed to be focusing around, i.e. Ethan Hunt's character. So
but I feel as though that she was very much a compliment.
Yeah, she very much complimented. But it feels as though by the way they they do stuff with this, the reasons for what they do going forward is the reasons why they directed the way they did in this storyline. And
she gets very shortchanged in like how they handle her.
It is.
And replacement of the new female lead and played by Hayley Atwell, who is Grace.
Yeah, look, when it comes to that character, Grace's character, if she was introduced in any other particular way in the story or in a more organic sense, I probably wouldn't care too much that they were introduced in this story. The problem is her character development is crucially tied to the fact that she is meant to be the new lead.
It's distracting.
It is, and it really does bring down, unfortunately, her part in this for me. At least for me.
I don't mind her performance. In fact, a lot of the action scenes in which the movie takes place, she's very much central to. She's very important in the making of how the tension is brought about, because it's like a lot of the times it's like trying to keep. She's basically the plot device of protecting her for the device in which they're trying to get.
But I feel as though it didn't need to come into here at the expense of another character, where both characters at the end of the day could have existed and it would have been just fine.
Yeah, and so a lot of, like, despite the fact that the movie's threat is something that we're not going to be discussing as an unknown thing, there is a physical embodiment that was marketed as the main threat, who is played by Esai Mariela. His name is Gabriel. The character. It's a new character in which apparently it was part of Ethan Hunt's past, but prior to where the first movie started.
Yeah.
He's mostly a television actor. I like his charisma. There's not really much instead of him being a very very formidable foe.
I would say formidable in the physical sense, yes. As far as his passionate direction, it almost comes across almost like to
he's a glorified.
It's almost like glorified henchman, but at the same time, it's almost like borderline like Saturday morning cartoon kind of villain too. At the same time, or twirly mustachey kind in a way.
You know, it's like it's not subtle at all.
It's not, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm okay with the other threat being the more focus.
Which is fitting, which is at least from the threat storyline. It's part 2 for that.
Yeah.
So we'll see
like,
about that.
I don't know. Like I said,
there are other characters that could have been handled. Like you have the other people of Ethan Hunt's team of Luther and Benji, who has been recurring mainstays for a while now. They're fine, but here's something. If you want to like start rotating, it needs to be equal.
Yeah,
I'll say that. But
any one of these individuals, if you're gonna, like I say, mix and change who's gonna be in this franchise, then do it on around the board, not just from the female side, because it just comes across as way too misogynistic
and also ego-driven.
Exactly, and it's just not where I'm at. So much so that this kind of soured my mood on a part 2. So I don't know necessarily if I'm definitely going to come back to go watch it. I would like to see some things develop in a way that it would make me want to see a part 2 happen. But we're going to be looking for this more into the concepts of how the production value is. And in this particular case, I will say this installment definitely raises the bars in certain areas.
Christopher McQuarrie, Tom Cruise, they ever since the gap between Mission Impossible 3 and Mission Impossible 4, that was directed by Brad Bird, they basically took upon themselves to always up the ante on the type of stunts they do, the practicality of how they do it, and basically raising stakes.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. If you go and watch this movie for anything, you're coming to go watch it for the train sequence alone.
The marketed stunt is the motorcycle jump clip that goes into the train sequence.
No, you're here for the whole sequence. So stay for the whole sequence. This is what you're going to do. This is where you're going to get your money's worth.
That being said, if you like the the music, the theme song that Lauren Balfe reiterates for the franchise, I don't know how many people actually close their eyes during the title sequence or not, because they like the television series of which this is based off of. Opening title sequence will always basically show you scenes of that movie that you're about to watch. Maybe that's distracting for maybe so, but the music's good always. But that being said, how we feel about the movie overall, like we said, this is structurally the best film in the franchise so far.
However, I will have to say, because of certain choices and developments in this particular installment, that unfortunately reared its head for a problem that is a recurring issue in this franchise, I have to bring this down, at least in my eyes, to being just a great time at the flicks. It could have been amazing. It could have been epic. But as far as I'm concerned right now, this is just a great time.
I like it very much, but it's unexcusable how blatantly sexist and ego-driven that this franchise and some other franchises, let's be fair, some male-driven action franchises, they tend to do this type of thing. Yep. But from an objective point of view, we still I do want to give credit to where credit is due. So that's our review for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. My name is Adam.
And I'm Aaron. And please hit that bell down there at the bottom for notifications. We want to hear from you. Did you watch Mission Impossible? Are you a fan of the franchise? What are you looking forward for this franchise to do to go forward as far as making itself better and improved?
And also look at our social media outlets of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if you want content that we don't post on this channel.
There's only so many hours up in a day and not enough time to do it.
All right. See you.